p.m. We'll get started out of respect of everybody's time. If you'll stand, please, we'll do the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today is Monday, July 20th, 2020, the time being 6 p.m. This is a special meeting of the Greensburg City Council and is called to order. This time, please silence your electronic devices. To comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the city requests that participants in this meeting complete a voluntary anonymous survey that we can provide for you. If Brenda would please call the roll.
Jamie King, Daryl Poling,
Here.
Vieta,
Here.
Rick Emsweller,
Here.
Kevin Fleetwood,
Here. Okay, so this evening is our annual sort of workshop budget that we go through every year. I know that it's been a little bit rushed this year. We're trying to condense the timeline for conversations surrounding coronavirus and different pieces like that. We have with us two gentlemen from Reedy Financial. You all will probably remember Dave from a couple weeks ago. And then we also have Jerry Hickman, who has sort of been our point person on building out the budget and all of the different pieces like that. Before I turn it over to Jerry, a little bit of back on how this is built. The department heads send over Form 1s that sort of run out their request for what they have in their departments and different projects and proposals, equipment, capital purchases. Something that we've done with Reedy that we haven't really done in the past is we built out a capital improvement plan that runs out about 5 or 6 years. So upon completion of this year's budget, you will receive a binder about as big as this one that has that for each department in it as well for what the future sort of looks like. We are still working on putting that together, and of course with COVID that sort of changed a lot of different pieces. Of course we have the department heads that this affects here with us this evening as we go through each sort of page. But first I want to turn it over to Jerry to sort of say, what they can help us with as we go through this conversation, what they're going to be doing on this end of the table as we're having our conversations, and then a little bit about the summary sheet.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, Jerry Hickman. I'm sorry I couldn't be at the last meeting. Happy to be here today. As far as our role today, I actually have the electronic version of this budget book on my computer, so as you guys make changes, I plan on updating that. I'll highlight any changes that are made today, similar to a lot of the notes that you see on the top of the page. Send out a revised version so everybody can stay on the same page. That will also update the summary page that I'll discuss here in just a little bit. So I'll be, as we're going through this, anytime you guys want to know, where we at as far as surplus deficit, we need to still cut in this area or that area, definitely give you those answers. And then as well, there is some fund flexibility between different funds, so if there's anything as far as shifting, some more police line items from one fund to another just to balance things out, definitely ask any of those questions as well. As far as that goes, we can jump over to the summary page if you'd like. I know that the last meeting that Dave and Eric were at, this was part of the letter. This has since been updated based off of the Form 1s that were turned in. The mayor had sent a few tweaks here or there, so we did update that, so this is new information. I'll go over this really quickly again. This isn't all of your budgeted funds. I think there's maybe a couple that's not in there, like hazmat, I think is one. On the summary page, everything that's going to be adopted is within this binder as far as the summary page goes. This is everything that's within the actual financial plan. Any of those funds outside of that would, based off of their particular revenue or cash on hand as far as the fund goes. Once we get to those in the budget book, we can definitely give you more information on them. As far as this works, we have projected revenues there in the second column, the projected budget, which is tied directly to the big budget book. And then we have projected unused. This is based off of, we look at historical information as far as roughly where you guys have been in the past few years, the amount of budget that you don't spend. That is factored in. That is an assumption. If you guys would want anything differently, let us know, but right now it's 5% unused, which historically you guys have been there. I think it was a little over 8% last year that you guys hit. The next column there, 2021, that's what we're really gonna be focusing on today as far as the budget surplus. Once again, you would see these same numbers within the bottom of each fund of the budget book. So once we get into this and you guys make any adjustments, I can give you those updated amounts. Going through that 2021 column, I will point out as far as some of the higher deficits, which would be MBH and then also CCD. That's a main funding source for CCMG. I think the total match is $775,000 that we have currently in the budget that the city would put forth, and then they would get that matched. So that's what we have in there currently. Trying to maximize as much as possible for that CCMG. But that's the main reason for the deficits in MBH right now and CCD. 2022, you'll see the general fund has a large surplus of $610,000. The main reason there is because of the situation we're in right now with COVID-19, we have conservatively projected only 90% of property taxes to be collected this year, so 10% delinquent taxes. Those recouped by 2022 is what we're factoring in. So it's approximately $420,000 less property taxes this year, but then recouping those in 2022. So that's why you see the high surplus there. Brandon, I don't know if you want to, what you just told me as far as
I had talked with the county treasurer and auditor, and they feel like that the taxes are being paid. They have had, people waited as long as they could till July the 10th, but they are paying their taxes, so that we should be recouping most of those.
And we can update the plan accordingly as we get that kind of information.
They don't have a final date, excuse me for interrupting.
No, you're fine.
They do not have a final date. It was July the 15th. They're getting coordinated with the state for all that, and so they'll be letting us know what that is. Okay?
Which that's great news because prior I was just looking at June settlement from last year compared to this year, percent-wise of the total levy. Last year at this time it was 56.7%. This year it's down to 48.27%. So I was a little concerned, but Brenda has good news there. So hopefully everything does pick up and there's nothing to worry about as far as a large amount of delinquent taxes this year.
Yes, sir.
The unused column, real,
Yes.
so I'm gonna clear. That's a projected amount left over from the 2020 budget?
This would be from the 2021 budget. So the way this would work is we've got the $8.3 million budget right there.
Yes.
417, this assumes that 417,000 would not be spent. So bringing, your total expenditures of that budget to, roughly the 7.9 million, which is really close to the revenue, which is why you only see a deficit of 34,000. Now, I think last year it was 8-point-something%.
But right now, the numbers in here equal 8.351.
For the budget. For the budget, yes, correct.
So right now, we're, according to the budget that's been proposed, and our revenue, we're 400, from the general fund, we're about $452,000 over budget.
If you,
That's the number.
yes, I 100% agree with that. If you spent every single penny of
It's
your
in the
budget.
budget, it's in the proposed budget.
Yes, that is correct, sir.
But last year you said we spent back 8%, right?
Yes, it was.
Well, I just don't remember years past, the numbers being this grossly different. I mean, we have a proposed budget of 12.6 and revenue of 11.8, we got $852,000 budgeted for more than the projected revenues across all these funds. I mean, am I wrong, in years past, it's never been that big?
No.
Not even close. We used to talk about $100,000, $120,000. There's a lot of work to do on this budget.
Yeah, last year it was, as far as the unused appropriation, the amount not spent of the budget was 8.1%, which equated to a little over $552,000 of the budget not spent last year.
Mark, do you want to talk on the MVH district, the gas tax collection, what you've heard from that? Because obviously that's a big one in here as well.
The biggest number we got in the red. The actual distribution that came in June was for the month of April, is that the disaster month?
I think so.
Yeah, we were down 49%. I don't think we've got the one yet for May that comes in July. They're saying anywhere from 20 to 25% deep reduction in MVH funds going forward, including LRS. To give you an idea how bad it is, they suspended the CCMG second phase for 2020 because they don't have any revenues. So the whole bleak on the gas tax situation is not good.
And part of the reason these budgets are high for two of these funds is for the community crossings grant, which would be applied for next year, so. when
They're
they-
still anticipating having 2021.
Okay, when they think they make the decision on that one?
It would normally occur until January.
January and July is the normal occurrence time for them.
And they canceled
The second half of this year?
The July of
in
2020.
July,
Yes.
like the day that application.
Actually, they had the application were supposed to be online July 1 and they canceled them like July 2. The website was actually open. You could have started an application. You could, their like completed application, had it turned in, and then they scratched the program. So I would say you will know about January 1, probably December, Christmas. So they're not going to give you advance warning.
Unless things get really ugly on collections or get really good early on. I doubt anyone's counting on either of those yet.
So once we get to the sort of MVH piece, we can look at that some more too, and then the CCD one does have 100,000 set aside for that as well. Part two sort of to this is, this assumes a 3% raise for all city employees across the board. I know that that's a topic every year, but that's a sort of cost of living increase that folks look at. I was on a roundtable with mayors from across the state late last week, and there are communities doing 0 to 3% increases. So it's not really any different than what's in here per se, but that is also a number that's included. As we go through this, we can talk about some of the other bigger increases in different numbers as well. But Jerry, anything else from your side on that?
Unless there's any other questions before we.
Okay. The other piece is we're talking about the trash tipping fee. That's estimated to be somewhere between 400,000 and 500,000 annual revenue increase. That is not included in this. We didn't want to put the numbers in on something that you guys hadn't had at least your first discussion about. But based on what we talked about at the last meeting, that's not included. How would that go, Mark? It would go in the sanitation fund, which is currently subsidized substantially by general fund funds.
It would actually go back into the trash tipping fee, and the proposed ordinance has widened what that's suitable for expenses, so we could use it to pay for normal operating expenses in the sanitation fund that are currently be paid for out of the general fund.
That number you just quoted, what did you say it was?
Between 400,000 and 500,000.
And that's based on increasing the fee to what?
$12.
Is that the remainder of this year?
No, that's it, starting January 1.
That's a full year
Full-
restoration.
That's a full year.
And right now, if you look at your sanitation fund, sanitation sheet of the general fund, right now that budget runs $780,000, and we pay all of that with general fund money.
So if we take trash tipping $12. That would equate to about a 400,000.
45.
45.
400 to 500 per meal. Okay. So is there, I mean, Kevin made the point about the total unused. It's one of those things, you know, we can't spend every dollar of every fund we allocate, just because it will never work out like that. It's fairly common to have unused appropriation lines.
Yeah, definitely. We've had clients that prefer to assume 100% spent, and we have some that they just know historically, based off of, you know, historical data, that they don't spend 100% of their budgets. We've had clients do it both ways. It's whatever you guys would prefer.
So do you guys want to just take a first run through it and see what we come up with, ask questions as we go? Is there something else that you would like to?
I just have that feel sometimes if it's budgeted, it's there, it's available, someone will want to spend it.
I think that's, you know, I told all the department heads when we had this meeting, you know, if you put it on the Form 1, I assume you need it. I'm assuming you're not building out a wish list. We've gone through it all, and I think it's all fairly needed. Now, if you want to have a conversation about some of the items that maybe are more centric to me, as we talk about, you know, new programmings and new ways of life and cultural amenities and things like that, we can definitely have that conversation. Again, part of that webinar was talking about communities during this uneasy time about migration out of urban cores and into communities that are smaller, that are investing in their people and the ways of life that those communities offer. So there are some communities out there talking about doubling down on those procedures. I'm not saying we're doubling down, but I think there's a lot of different different projects in here that would help with that, and I'm happy to chat about those as we go through as well. Ready? Okay, page 1. Of course, Reedy's put the color key there at the top for you. Some of it doesn't make much difference about when and where it came from or why. It's more of a, as we have our conversations on the backside.
What's the new line item? What is it?
We just moved Kristen there, so we took clerical secretary out of line 3 and moved her down here. Different title, different job. And that already includes her salary increase.
All these salaries, they all get doubled, right? So.
Correct. Yeah, utility pays half of my salary and half of Kristen's.
What's the $10,000 for an intern?
I think it would be a good program for us to begin, you know, bringing someone either who's from the community or someone from out to work with us over the summer. Ron has Sam Kane this summer to work on some projects with him. I think it would be a good opportunity for us to tap into some exterior knowledge and start a program like that. That's a very high number. I think Kristen and I figured it at like $18 an hour for 4 months. It wouldn't technically be that high because we wouldn't have them for 4 months, but it's a very safe number. It would also potentially allow us to maybe do 2. We could have a summer intern for a couple months and maybe a fall semester intern. That would give us enough money to do that at a lower rate for different weeks.
What's the communication director's salary before the increase?
53.
Jerry, the longevity line in this one should be 275, please. Because Kristen is the only one who receives any longevity.
And then what's the huge increase in professional services?
Sure. So what I've done is I took a sort of a lot of different line items to be precise and combined them into. So we had a professional service fee line, we had an other improvements line, we had an other service line, we had an operating supplies line that came to a grand total of $77,000. So what we've done is we took 4 line items of small separate accounts, and this is something Brenda and I've been talking about, is we have 1,000 line items and just sort of shrank it into one. And then we also, so then for the increase, we also spent in 2019 $35,000 maintaining this building. A lot of that went towards HVAC service calls, but it includes the mats and the air fresheners and pieces like that. Some of that is duplication, and some of it is hopeful that the City Hall remodel project will get started next year. So it's not $35,000 on top of that, but we're also, what the website fee and things like that would be included. So that's part of the reason. That's all of those combined are my increase.
Okay, then we have
So we're, the improvements being made on City Hall, that's a capital expense, right?
Correct.
Is that,
It is not in this budget because the bond would not hit until 2023, correct?
Yes, based on the analysis that our finance department put together as far as there being substantial completion of the project, that the payments would come in until then. The analysis right now has the bond closing, I believe, June 1st, I believe, is what we're showing currently. But yes, the mayor's correct. Yes, June 1st.
We have on the communication and transportation line item, in 19, we spent 590, 2020 we budgeted 3. We've only spent through June 283, and we wanted to budget 25,000 for 2021.
That's a bit of an error because, so there's a couple things on that. One, we included a trip, foreign trip, that would be in partnership with EDC and probably some other communities. That should be 20,000 shorter because I moved
So
that
the
to.
column that says 2021 advertised proposed budget of 5,000 is the right number?
Yes, yes, that's correct.
So do the,
Right, Jerry?
Yes.
Okay. We moved that to.
you guys will talk about salaries or later. We have a conversation, we didn't have a conversation at each department, we had a conversation. As you look through here, there's, I mean, he said, it's not all 3%, it's not entirely 3% across the board for every employee. If you look through that,
So I have some notes on those.
he's got 0 then,
Yeah, and I have some.
he's got 6% in.
Yeah, and there's some notes, and I figured we would maybe get, so the department heads are 2 things. One, they're set by salary, the range is set by you all in the salary ordinance, and then I pick their salary inside the range. This is budgeted to, and we would have to move our salary ordinance up to those standards. So we took what was the 2020 approved plus 3%. Some of those stay within the current range outlined in the salary ordinance, some of them do not. So Nathan's request at more than 3% is simply to build out what would be able to be budgeted in the salary ordinance. Brendan's 0%, unless you put his cap at the top of what he is, wouldn't technically have to stay if you approve the salary ordinance to be more.
But the fire chief and the police chief the same range?
It was not signed that way by Mayor Manis, but I made them equal in some range.
I thought they were equal.
Uh,
Not equal pay, but the ranges were the same for both.
They weren't, they just were not equal pay.
I mean, I'll be the devil's advocate. I just think in today's climate with revenues forecast the way they are, I think 3% across the board is too much.
I tend to agree with you on that. I spoke to James, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he was thinking that way also. We haven't had any layoffs, is that correct?
Correct.
We had any work stoppages?
No, everybody's been doing a really good job. We've had a couple people who have worked from home when it was sort of in the height of everything, but everybody's remained at work, been working. Everybody's been very flexible.
I believe in the last 12 years, we've had one, and correct me, anyone, if I'm wrong, I think there was 1 year where we did not give a raise. All the others, we've always given a raise. Is that
Well,
correct?
quite honestly, the last 3 years, police and fire have got some really healthy raises.
That's correct. But, and
But that got them to where they
they've
probably
got
should be.
where they should be, yes, exactly. And as far as, I think there was just a small raise in from council, I think we need to wipe that off, so.
Yeah. Take it out. And I just did some rough number crunching before I walked in. I mean, just, I think I grabbed them all, but it's roughly about $105,000 in salary increases.
I mean, one thing that we could do, just throwing it out there as an option, is a one-time pay, $500 or something like that, payable the first of the year. I realize that's not a lot of money, but it's still showing a little bit of appreciation to our people.
It's just under half what 3% would be, basically.
Yeah, probably something, yeah, I think so.
For about the lowest salaried employee, that would be about a 1.5% raise. But if you don't want to count it as a raise, then it wouldn't go towards their base salary for next year. It wouldn't be based on that longevity, it would not count towards longevity numbers.
And I think anything we do should count towards longevity.
I hadn't considered that. So if you take the 3% and drop it to 1.5,
Consider
that
a
way
raise.
it will count towards the longevity.
You dropped to 1.5 from longevity as well?
That longevity still stays.
Just a one-time bonus would not count towards longevity.
Right. It would be that percent. And then figures in longevity, their pension, and all those.
Longevity's 1%, right?
Right.
But that 1.5% would go into that dollar for future years. But,
They get an extra 1% of the 1.5.
yeah. Now, all the department heads don't get longevity.
Anybody who's been for 20 years.
Is capped at 20%. So do we want to maybe operate with that in mind for the time being?
We could review.
1.5.
Stuff like
discussing 1.5% increase for all employees. Okay. Anything else on page 1?
I'll be honest, I don't think the intern needs to happen until revenue's improved.
And that's something, I mean, for lack of better terms, I can make that call as time proceeds. I know your fear of if it's budgeted, it'll get spent. But we are concerned about what 21 looks like. I'm aware of that as well. And if it doesn't look like it's working out, then maybe we don't do it. And or we can do it for less money. I think we can definitely do it for less money. Anything else? Okay. Page 2, this is Brenda's budget, Brenda's fund.
I think there's one place you may have a question, that's on our APAR administrator, at 7%. It was not at 7%, that was merely from last year's budget, bringing Betsy in line with Julie because of her education and her ability to do her job, and cutting out a lot of outside consulting fees. So where it looks like it's merely bringing Betsy up without Julie's longevity.
So that was an extra 2% on top of what we thought
Well,
was.
the council
3%.
approved when we came into office, and we paid, we did an additional appropriation from the edit fund to bring Betsy's salary in line to be the same as Julie's was without longevity. Julie had the longevity over Betsy.
The extra 2,000 for the college degree, how many people does that affect?
That was an incentive for, Julia's doing a lot of work, as the city's personnel director, and for her to, get some, additional education on that, to maybe get the degree in personnel management. I think all of the department heads here would verify that if they have, whenever they have a question on salary, anything to do with the handbook, that Julie is very beneficial to them on that. And then,
Will they do that as a reimbursement? Or are you just gonna pay for it?
we would
Most
pay,
people do a reimbursement.
is Julie at the top?
Sure.
Julie?
The college degree certification would be for anybody who has a college degree. Brenda was wanting to pay more if you had a bachelor's degree. And then the educational reimbursement would be if I go back to school and get any additional classes. There's a Society for Human Resources Management designation I can get through like Ivy Tech, or I could go back to Ball State and get more HR classes. And I thought about doing that just to help with the HR side of it and not have to use Addie at our handbook company quite so much.
So the college.
So they're two separate things. One is education reimbursement and one is, hey, if you have your bachelor's degree.
An extra $2,000 per year.
That's what the $2,000 is for, because I will tell you right now that Julie and Betsy both have their bachelor's degree, and we're cutting out lots and lots of money from this budget on outside consulting. because of their educations.
The 2,000 the 2,000 be paid as a one-time each year or?
Yes.
split?
Yes. And then if Julie goes on to
But you said both of them have their degree, so is it 1,000 each or is it 2,000 each?
1,000 each.
Okay. So I'd say 1,000 per employee.
Okay.
You might go and have three. Who knows?
Excuse me?
You might go one day and have 3 employees.
Well, on that note,
No.
no, on part-time,
You open the door.
on part-time, the 2,000 on the part-time is due to, we have a part-time employee that we are utilizing to the max. I think that's another thing that department heads can verify, that if they come to our office, our part-time gal can assess any ordinance, resolution, anything. The office is becoming organized to where we can at least find current titles to vehicles, bond information, those type things that were not readily available to us.
Brenda, I've got a question on 2 line items.
Okay.
One of the other services and charges, that you're asking for $5,000 more than what was budgeted this year, for a total of 15, and then the software upgrade that for $120,000.
Okay, right now we have, I'm gonna go with 120,000. Right now we have Keystone. Keystone was purchased in 2006 or 9. It's over, and it's antiquated. You cannot even do a print screen on that. We, instead of using the prior administration's consulting, because Reed Financial has someone on staff that Betsy and I are both very familiar with. She's helping us stumble through Keystone and its antiquated thing. We are looking to bring this into Lao. Lao is moving out of counties because they have almost every county in the state. There's only 8 counties in the state that Lao is not using. And we would be considered part of their pilot program moving forward. Betsy and I worked with Lao at county, although this would be a completely different group of people that we're working with. It's still under the same umbrella of the company. And that's the reason we're looking for that. The 5,000 for professional services, that is if I need the attorney to help me, to write up something for my office or something like that. If I have services that pertains to my office only for Reedy, for example, we have someone coming from Reedy on Thursday and Friday. And that professional services would certainly help next year for you.
So, let's go back to the software upgrade. So, I get the fact that it's, from vintage 2000, it's outdated. But the system you're talking about, Lao, or
Lao.
that they're used, how many different companies offer the, is that the company you want to use, or are you gonna get some?
This is a company I want to
RFQs
use,
from
and
other companies, see
when
how
I was putting
competitive they
feelers
are.
out, they were the least expensive,
Okay,
okay? Understanding that would probably have to bid on a software system. This one is the least expensive, so that's the reason I asked for that one.
how do you spell that?
Lao, L-O-W. L-O-W. Vincennes was their very first pilot company. Once again, Reedy, am I allowed to say that? Reedy, is their financial assistance also.
I think they have 6 or 7 cities coming up.
Yes, they have 7 new cities coming on board with them. that would cover our accounting system and our payroll system.
What kind of efficiencies did you gain from this?
Excuse me?
What kind of efficiencies did you gain with the software increase?
What kind of efficiency?
Is it gonna automatically link into different
Yes.
systems? I mean,
If you have this, are there any other line items that you may not need as much of because this system is that helpful?
Okay. I think this was the bare bones. One of the things could, let's see. Maybe their consulting fees could be cut back. At $121 an hour. Which, right now Keystone is 125. But, yeah.
And that also.
I think Brenda needs it. I mean,
Right.
we deal a lot in the system and we're looking for stuff all the time. She's pleaded to me multiple times.
No, she and I had a sidebar on it not too long ago, and I see the need, it sounds like she's touched her bases, looked at other places. I just hope there's
Other places.
The attention, right now, if we call Keystone, which is our current company, if Julie calls for payroll, Betsy calls, I call, we don't get, and there's no one that we can talk to. We're put in a queue, and maybe we're called back in an hour, maybe we're called back the next day. I have a question that's been into them for 2 weeks, and every time I call and say, I need an answer to this question, we'll get somebody to work on it. Where with Lau and the experience we've had with them, if we called today by this afternoon, if we called this morning by this afternoon, we would have had someone, if we needed on site, standing beside of us saying, oh, you need that meeting for your meeting tonight? Here you go. That's the experience that I've had with them for 3.5 years. Betsy, how many years did you have? 13. So we just,
Any other questions for Brenda? Or changes to her budget? No? Okay. Up next, is your fund. There's already been a comment about the salaries. Jamie and I were talking about that earlier in creation. He requested it be added. It's up to you all.
My vote is no. I know we're not taking votes, but,
I'd say take it out.
Yeah, I agree.
I would agree.
Move that to 0. Next, we have the insurance line. Obviously, that's a very large increase. There seems to have been a bit of an error in what was entered for the 2020 budget. You all appropriated $1 million to this fund. How this works, Julie and I have been working on this for several weeks now, is you appropriate the money in your budget, and then the money is moved from there into Fund 811, which is then used to pay the insurance premiums to the insurance company. Last year, you appropriated $1 million out of here. Their Honda Fire contributes some insurance costs, and MVH contributed to some insurance costs, and the utilities pick up their insurance costs for all of their employees. Last year, we needed $2.2 million totally appropriated to cover our insurance liabilities from a health insurance perspective. And your $1 million out of the general fund wasn't enough to get us the 2.2. Now, we're gonna probably get fortunate this year as we've had a lot of reimbursements from 2020 that carried over into 2021, meaning that our premiums paid so far this year is very low. But we're not really beating the system at all. That money's gonna be due. In all honesty, we won't know what our insurance premiums are until late in the year for next year. That number as a total expenditure would probably be about 1.3. but we need 1.5 to get us to the full 2.2. That's why there's such a substantial increase. Does that make sense? And that includes an increase from utilities. It removes the money from NVH because we're trying to get the CCG. They contributed 50,000, not a big number. And then we'll get to the Honda Fire.
Where's BOW members get into? It's the second item down. Board of Work members.
Oh, they're in their own budget. The next page.
Okay. And then, animal control agreement, I think we-
Yes, so the animal control agreement, we had this conversation when they came last time. After you all had left, Jamie had asked Kristen to reach out to the animal control director and ask for a list of their income as well, because what they presented was their budget,
total expenditures.
total expenditures and no income. Kristen, you,
I've tried to get a hold of Ashley a couple of times and she has not sent me the information I requested.
Tell you how to get the information, tell her its budget is zero right now until you get it.
it is put in here at their full request.
How did it elicit a response? We can always cut it, but
Correct. So again, maybe, and I think that's, look, I'm kind of upset I didn't think of that question while she was here. But hopefully that would help some, because obviously that's a big increase.
well, she shocked everybody because it went from X to,
Yeah, it went from 55,000 to 115,000,
yeah,
and this is only our half.
yeah.
So you wanna leave that, and then, yeah, okay.
So what are we doing?
We can always cut it later, just leave it for now. But I point blank tell her that if she doesn't get you a response to what her income is, we're just gonna slash it to zero, but pay for themselves.
There you go.
Yeah, I got that.
You need that repeated?
Has the text gone out yet?
All right, she'll be here in 6 minutes. Okay. Anything else from the council?
The BPW through me instead of BOW.
Yeah. They did me at first.
Everybody go with the council? Okay. Board of Public Works. A couple things on this page that we can make up a slight amount of money, I believe. Historically, Steve Raymer was our custodial maintenance person. He is now working with Sarah in what was Tracy Davis's role. So he transitioned over there. I didn't see a need for a full-time custodian to take care of our building in the police department. So Deanna Denny's been working with us as a part-time employee for a set dollar per hour type of situation. I mistakenly entered all of this, or not mistakenly, but I'll leave it up to you all. This is built out for a full-time person, so there's perf benefits. Not that the benefits really matter because it's a larger pool, but perf, Medicare, the salary is 50%. The utilities pick up the other 50% of the salary. And then the maintenance line at the very top, Julie and I talked about this afternoon. We're not really sure why that was in there because we wouldn't hire a maintenance person. This has to be used for full-time staff members by being in the personnel category. We would hire part-time people out of professional services or contractors, if you will. We would have contractors, sorry.
So for the custodians, you're using this person part-time, paying them by hour, roughly what are you looking at?
Yeah, so we could move, so the top line item, if you're ready for this, we can get rid of the 10,000 listed for maintenance. We can get rid of FICA Medicare. We can get rid of PERF, and we can get rid of longevity. And then that,
Is she part-time contractual?
You gotta
You'll
have-
pay FICA, Medicare?
Yeah, you gotta have FICA.
Then we,
You need the FICA and Medicare,
Oh.
you just don't need the PERF.
You don't
Okay.
get perk, you gotta have FICA and Medicare.
sorry, so we'll leave that one.
You still need the 20,000?
No, we can move that to 10.
You need the longevity, it's not much.
10,
So we just got 20 out plus
10,
the perf and the longevity, right?
plus 26,
Mm,
6,
About 23,000.
Just to make sure I have this in
You
here
said you cut
correctly.
the maintenance line too?
Yeah.
And, so who does your maintenance work?
Anything that we can't necessarily do, we would hire out. We're not really sure why that was even in there.
you have another line item you paid out of.
Yeah, we just put it in professional services or something. The water guys come and mow the lawn. We have Piney who does all of the HVAC stuff.